So this is ginger. We were doing an experiment with the ginger for our future biomass heated greenhouse over at our Grandview farm. And we had to cut the experiment short because we didn't want to really heat our greenhouses here. Didn't want to burn up our wood supply, which we have for the spring for our seedlings. So this could be a lot bigger, but we pulled it out now because we're just not willing to heat. And then this is a ginger flower. And I'm told by the experts that it's pretty rare. You're doing everything right if you get your ginger to flower. I was worried that it was flowering. I said, no, that's fine. And this fresh ginger is way less fibrous, a little milder, and real juicy. And it's becoming a real popular item at markets these days.
Sure. Yep. This is my fermented garlic I made with oregano. That's about 2 months.
Smells great.
Into it.
Yeah, smells wonderful.
And then this is my fermented beef. You can hear the little pot. These ones are very earthy, but Jason doesn't like them, but I do. So I've been eating them.
Oh.
And then this is my newest batch of cultured veggies. And I didn't put it,
wonderful.
it's just all the seasonings from my other batches. Here, you can try a bite. This is a mix of mine too. It was my lunch I brought on the way here. Okay.
Sauerkraut and develop a culture from it?
Yeah, once you make cultured veggies, you'll never have to buy the culture again. Like once you have the culture added in.
I'm for that.
It's a one-time deal. It's great. Alrighty.
Okay, we have Kelly here, one of our stalwart volunteers on the farm, and she gets to shine as our expert here. She's coming here to learn how to grow food, but she's going to teach us how to ferment naturally with culture rather than using high salt, lactic fermentation. Kelly, do you want to tell your story?
Yes, I'll start with all the ingredients and preparation we have today. We have sanitized all the jars we will be using for the fermentation process. The grinder and knives that cut our cabbage and carrots. And we will be using garlic, ginger, thank you, cabbage and carrots for the cultured veggies, and then our sauerkraut will be mainly all cabbage. This is the cabbage we have just harvested out of the field. We are going to cut out the core, cut it in half and cut out the core, and start chopping it up smaller for the cultured veggies, which we'll be using half of it in the food processor to make more surface area for the fermentation to take place, and a little bit bigger slices for the sauerkraut. So for the cultured veggie process, it is best to start cutting up the cabbage and we'll grate the carrots, thinner slices than it will be for the sauerkraut. Then we're going to take a third of the batch that we make and put it in the food processor. It allows more surface space to take place for the fermentation and the organisms to eat through and be happy. And we'll also chop up the garlic and ginger, put them in, but we're going to put them in the food processor so they'll already be small. And then we will start jarring them and add the liquid, and that'll be the procedure. It's really not that hard at all.
That's just wonderful. I love that.
It'll be fun.
Letting microbes do the work, right?
That's right. Let the fermentation take.
That's how these cabbages got that gorgeous in the first place, and now they're going to get that nutritious.
Let it grow.
What about culture? You buy it once. Tell us about that.
The culture, you can do it either without any additives and just put the main ingredients are the cabbage and carrots because they're a main component in the lacto fermentation. But once you have the starter or the culture, it's easier to do random vegetables that don't include the necessity lacto fermentation like cabbage and carrots, and you can do garlic, or I did pickled beets I put the cabbage and carrots in just to add the extra necessary vegetables that they prefer. And then my normal culture veggies, which are always cabbage and carrots, and this one I added in onions and garlic, ginger, and and garlic, ginger. Yeah, that's all. I was thinking there was more to it, but this is one of my best batches.
That's plenty enough. That is
Yeah.
delicious, by the way. Unfortunately, you can't taste on the camera, but we sure can. And we testify, don't we,
And you
Jeremy?
can definitely
Yeah.
smell it.
Yeah.
Whew.
Do the process on, you'll have it, and then you can keep using your culture, right?
Yes, so as I said, you can do it naturally with just having the veggies and put water in, but you have a higher chance for bacteria to take over. What you want to do is to help it out and give more culture so you know that it's going to ferment rather than reverse and go the other way with the bacteria
With
going
mold
in
and-
with the
yeah.
bad way. So when you provide the good enzymes, which you could either extract it from whey, which is really good, my brother does that, or I have bought the starter culture from a natural food website, which once you do once, you never have to do again, because once you start and provide the nutrients it needs and it grows, you can take that juice, which is the most important part of it, and transfer it into all your other batches, and you'll be set.
Except for the ones I eat.
Oop, there's a little bug. He's joining us.
Guess with the sauerkraut,
I'll save you, buddy.
how to make
Other way.
in the book I use, he stresses not sterility, just cleanliness. Not looking for sterile, and I guess that's because he's using salt and
Salt gives you the control. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Only that stuff that's been bred to really survive,
Yeah.
that high saline thing will thrive in.
Mhm.
So you don't need to do the sterilizing.
yeah.
And he is Sandra Katz, right?
Yeah.
He's I'd say the reigning expert on fermentation, wouldn't you?
In the Roman days, they used to use salt as money because it was so important to use in your food fermentation. It would help keep food, so it was part of the bartering.
And their version of a tea party were the Tuscans, who made their bread without salt, even though it was tasteless, because they refused to pay the tax on salt.
The other day they found that what they think is the oldest town in all of Eastern Europe, and it's out of Sofia in Bulgaria, and they think it was a salt mining village, and that's what it was, the oldest ever found.
Yeah, and similarly, many of the other, in various places, the oldest, they're always right around salt. Yeah. Salt was a huge wealth in those days.
Like a little
And you
space.
know, like we were saying, have people craving salt, it's because they need minerals. But they strip them out, right, if you don't get good sea salt. So that's why people like them, are craving salt, they need their minerals.
All right, as soon as I get these loaded up, I'll come over and chop cabbage.
To 10 days for cultured veggie to work. It's different for if you're doing kombucha or kefir. Kefir's only 2 to 3 days, and kombucha is 10 to 14 days. So it also depends on like the batch you're doing. With these mason jars, it's the perfect size. That's why I make them in huge batches, so you never run out. As soon as I get down to 1, 2 jars, I'm like, time to make cultured veggies. 1 head of cabbage. Okay, this is how I was thinking to prep them real quick. If we chop off both ends, gotta go farther back. We can just throw the whole cloves into the food processor and it'll mince them all. So it'll save us mincing time.
Right, but we're going to peel them, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I once worked with somebody who insisted that she could blend it up small enough that you didn't notice the peels, and you know what? She
What?
was wrong. She was wrong.
I've never heard of that.
Well, she was into creating her own reality, you know. And it always meant that she didn't have to work so much, you know.
Oh boy. So you want me to explain the process and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell us what we're doing here.
So what we're going to be doing is adding in 1/3 of the cabbage and carrots into the food processor, and then chopping up the garlic and ginger and putting them in as well. We're going to mix the batch together. Half of our batch will be using the older, it's not old, it's all the fresh batch of microorganisms of the cultured veggies I've already made, and we're going to
Matured batch.
Matured. Thank you, matured. So we will use that one. And then this is the starter culture I have bought. We used a little bit out of it actually for the beets. We're gonna mix this in with water. Now, with cultured veggies, the one thing you have to be very careful with is do not heat them above 100 degrees. They will die, they do not like it. It's a big no-no. So that's why you leave them out at room temperature between, it's usually 70 to 85 degrees. They thrive with it. So the water I'm gonna put this into will be lukewarm, about 80 to 85 degrees. It's the same with any culture. You don't want to heat up kombucha above 100. They're just very sensitive to heat. So
I have a question.
yes.
Most everybody I know keeps their house more like 65, 68. Will they just go slower, or do we have to heat our houses up
That's
more?
fine. If you get down to the 50s and 40s like it is in my yurt,
Yeah.
you have to help them out. Like I put mine on top of the refrigerator for now. In a week or two, or on the cold nights, move it into the house close by, because all it does is slow down the fermentation process. That's why after 7 to 10 days, you're going to take your cultured veggies and put them in the fridge, because it's going to slow down the process. If you left them out, they'd still keep fermenting, and then you would have mushy vegetables that would eventually turn into possibly rotten vegetables after leaving them out and accessing air to them time after time. That's why the sanitation is so important, and I always make sure that there are no rusts on your lids, because cultured veggies will eventually, any small cut or anything will start to rust your lids faster than using mason jars on a regular basis.
Right.
So those are just things to watch out for. Yeah, so eventually I will show you the next, I'd say like 3 times that amount.
Okay.
We're gonna go big. I always put lots of garlic, lots of ginger in. It's gonna flavor it to the max.
Like that?
That's perfect. And then I will show you how to fill them up in the jars, and we're gonna put water up to vegetable level, and they'll be ready to ferment.